Welcome again, and you are going to learn about a brief understanding about the history of English literature. Remember, we are doing it in a very brief manner here. So, English literature, history of English literature can be broadly divided falling into 9 parts based on the nature of English literature. Remember, history of English literature is divided based on convenience. But for our convenience, I have followed the M.H. Abraham's model of dividing it into 8 parts. So, the first part is Anglo-Saxon period, the beginning. Remember, the years are a bit important, that is 450 to 1066. What happened during this time? Remember, three different tribes of people attacked England. The inhabitants of that time were the Celtic people, Celtic, Celtic people, and these people were attacked by Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. And they started to move to England and they settled there. And it is from the Angles England got its name, Angleland, and they also gave the name of the language, which is English. And these tribes, when they moved to England, they carried an epic with them, which is known as Beowulf. We will further deal about it later. And more importantly, this period, the period of 450 to 1066, is also called as a period of dark ages because most of the things we don't know about, we don't have evidence, so it is speculated. So this period is known as the Old English period, which is totally different from the modern day English. And now we come to the second part, which is known as the Middle Ages, which starts from 1066 with the invasion of the Duke of Normandy to England, a Norman king. So during the next 300 years or so, England underwent a lot of cultural and language religious changes. French became the language of the rulers, Latin became the language of religion, and English was really pushed down as the third language, which has been called as the vulgar tongue, only used by the low class people of that country. And more importantly, the Old English was totally underwent change. Its vocabulary got changed, its language got changed, and new forms were introduced into England. And thanks to Geoffrey Chaucer, the man who made a dialect into a language. At the time Chaucer was writing, there were 4 predominant dialects of England, and he chose East Midland dialect and he made it into standardized English. And 1485 year is important because that was the time printing started in England. Though the printing press was moved to England in 1476, it was that year, 1485, Mortar the Author was published. Then now we move on to this third age. After the Middle Age comes our period, which is known as Renaissance. Renaissance starts with 1485, as I told you, with the invention of printing press, and runs nearly to 1660, which was the almost the end of Renaissance and starting of the next stage, which is known as the Enlightenment age or the Neoclassical age. Renaissance age, as you know, what is the speciality of that age? Classical learnings. Remember, up to 14th century, all the classical learnings, that is Greeks, Romans, everything was buried in the monasteries. Only a very few people knew about Aristotle, Plato, Longinus, Horace, and especially those who were living at that time in the monastery. None of the public knew about these people. So they were like a lost knowledge. Only it was in the time of 16th century people came to know about, we had such a great tradition in literature. We had great masters of literature. There was a time drama flourished. We can look at and imitate and we can copy and we can convert it to our own language. So that was a period of a great change, and thanks to some great writers, especially emergence of English drama, Elizabethan drama, Shakespeare. Remember, without any university education, he was mocked as a person with little knowledge and less Latin, and less Greek, and he literally transformed the stage. And after 1660, what happens is that the classical learning again, it was known as the Age of Enlightenment. Remember, Renaissance period itself, we saw the revival of classical learning. But at that time, literature only followed the content. They did not follow the form. It was at the time of Neoclassical age, people started to follow the classical forms. That is why it is known as the Neoclassical age. It was also age of rationalism. It was an age of scientific inquiry. a great age. And we at that time, drama was pushed to the back, and novel, because printing was becoming cheaper and cheaper, novel became a popular form of entertainment. We have great writers: John Dryden, Jonathan Swift, Samuel Dr. Johnson. And 1798, with the publication of lyrical ballads, you have started the romantic period. So rationality was pushed to the background and imagination came to the forefront. Individualism, emotion ruled the roost. And but only that lasted for a very short period of time, some 30 years. And the novel also flourished at that time, historical novel. We have Jane Austen coming at that time, Ivanhoe by Walter Scott. So that was a prolific period for literary activity. Also, that was the age of Industrial Revolution. And coming to the Victorian age, which is happened in 1832 to 1901, Queen Victoria became the ruler, and a lot of changes happened in England. So what happened was, what started as rationalism moved to imagination. Realism came to the stage. Realistic novel, emergence of social and political issues as major themes. So war literature was aloof from such issues, and we have major writers coming out like Charles Dickens, Emily Bronte, Thomas Hardy. And 1901, that is with the 20th century, there are major movements. First one with modernism, which again radically challenged the Victorian notions, and even literary forms, techniques, everything. New forms came to deal with people, like a stream of consciousness, fragmentation, interior monologue, and major writers like James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf ruled the roost. And the Second World War again challenged many notions of literature, which gave rise to what is known as the post-modernism. People started to lose trust in all the major narratives. People started to feel anxious. They lost hope because two world wars literally changed their life, and there was a threat of a third world war. The Cold War was going on. So ultimately, new notions, things came, and especially the writers were Jean Paul Sartre, Samuel Beckett, and Ron Jennings. And with 20th century, another is coming, which we will cover in the next part. So what we understand is that during the last 160 or 70 years, English literature has undergone a lot of changes, and it has only that much short history. Sometimes when we look around literature, and we may have a feeling that it has a much greater tradition than we think of, but no. And all what we study comes under this particular period. Before you go, just comment below the 5 or 6 things that you learned from this video, so that I know that you are learning with me. I will read each and every comment, and I will reply to you if you have any other issue.